New at 11, the other side of the Sirens. The NBC 10 investigators reveal our gun violence epidemic from the hospital bed.
Deep breath. In and out through your mouth.
And we expose the uphill battle for doctors rushing to save lives.
What has changed is the severity of these injuries, the weapons that are used these days.
And Philadelphia has now passed a jarring milestone, more than 1,000 people shot so far this year.
All day long, the NBC 10 investigators showed you efforts to stem the tide of gun violence in the city. Now, investigative reporter George Spencer takes us to the last line of defense, the trauma unit, where gunshot victims are saved.
At Hahnemann Hospital in Center City, saving the life of a gunshot victim begins outside the emergency room itself.
Got a gunshot wound?
A man so critically injured, he was rushed to the hospital by police. It's a team effort in Philly's changing battle against gun violence.
The weapons that are used these days are not the same weapons that were used in the civilian world 10 years ago.
Dr. Marcin Jankowski is the medical director of trauma at Hahnemann and the conductor of a medical symphony that we got to watch behind the scenes. The emergency response started on the scanners.
Person with a gun, the male report of a shooting, a male shot.
And by early the next morning, it was a headline on NBC 10.
New this morning, a man is in critical condition.
But in the meantime, at the hospital, an alert goes out overhead. And the trauma team rushes together from across the hospital. Smocks, gloves, and masks. By the time the patient is in the trauma bay, this symphony doesn't miss a beat.
So you don't see a bullet anywhere.
Even in the cases where players like bedside nurse Shanna Hobson know
I'm holding pressure.
the victim's life might never be the same.
A lot of times you know it before they do, and so you're trying to keep them calm before the news, you break the news.
Last year, Hahnemann treated 80 gunshot victims. By mid-October of this year, it had already cared for 58, more than the full year total for 2014 and 2015. Hahnemann's increases are reflected in citywide data. Philly police records show homicides ticking up in recent years off their 2013 lows. As of late October, the homicide count was 12% higher than it was at the same time last year. Those same records indicate that more than 8 out of every 10 homicides are committed with a gun. For many here, the urgency of a night's work, and sometimes the second guessing, doesn't hit until after their shift.
Hindsight is 20/20, and so it's easy to sort of say, okay, well, this could have gone better.
For me personally, I don't often do that until I'm driving home.
But Jankowski says in almost every trauma case, there's nothing his team could have done any better, even when a victim dies, forcing him to face the toughest task, breaking the news to family.
I've done this for many, many years, and it never gets easier. It just never gets easier.
And for the gunshot victim we witnessed, he doesn't have to do it. That victim was treated and released, a living symbol of gun violence and of those fighting it. For the investigators, George Spencer, NBC 10 News.